Hey everybody, welcome back. We are discussing uniform attribution, or some people might call this linear attribution, where we uniformly or linearly spread out the credit across all sessions. So let's just check in again. How do we do it, right? So this was first touch, right? Where the first touch gets all credit, in that case 3 of 3. But in a uniform world, we are giving 1 of 3, 1 of 3, and then 1 of 3. And in this case, we are giving it to, of course, to the session resulting in a purchase. So that is linear or uniform. And I have some sample data here. I just wanted to go through the algorithm first with some dummy data, so it's easier to just kind of start writing code. And I've included this in the class lecture notes. You can just easily copy and paste, or of course, you could use Bard. Just take a screenshot of it, ask Bard or ChatGPT to generate the code. It usually works pretty well. So let's talk about it. Let's just talk about it. Now, it seems simple, but it's good to step through the algorithm a little bit. We should walk through what it really does. So in this case, it's super simple. I have one user, just a single user. They've made multiple purchases. There's purchase 1 on Jan 27. There's purchase 2 on January 30th. So now remember, in this case, I'm in the first case, we're going to ignore multiple purchases, or try to avoid the nuance required to segment them. And what do I mean by that? Like, in a perfect world, and before we're done with this section, we're going to approach it like this. We're going to say, okay, these were all the sessions that led user A to a purchase, and I want to uniformly allocate that $100 across them, right? So I want to say that gets a third, and that gets a third. And these algorithms, it's good if you just do them in a spreadsheet sometimes to convince yourself that it's correct, right? So that would be that. And then, in this scenario, this purchase was generated from these 2 sessions, but those 2 sessions occurred after another purchase. So this is like another group. And again, we're not doing it this time around. I'm just showing you. We're going to take it step by step. So in this case, how would you allocate that? That divided by 3, of course, it's just $50 each time. 50 divided, 150 divided by 3 is 50. So I'll just make that look all nice. And so that's like the ideal. You have these like purchase session groups. So we're not going to do that. So what are we actually going to do? Well, we're just going to say, in the simple world, we're going to say, well, how many total purchases do we have? We have 150 plus 100, and we're going to allocate that across 6 rows, right? So we have 6 rows. We'll do that divided by 6. So that's $41 a piece. So I'll just say, I'll just write $41.66. Okay, so that's how much credit everything gets. And notice how it is similar, right? It's kind of similar. They both add to 150, or sorry, 250. But they're a little bit different, right? So in this case, because that bigger purchase was more related to social marketing, these channels, I'm going to put simpler world over here. What do you notice? These channels get a little bit less credit on average because some of the credit goes back to Google CPC and direct none, whereas here it is more correct. So let's start with simple world and figure out how to compute this. So what are the things that we really need though? We need total purchase revenue. Okay, that's something important. We could also say total purchases if we want to divide the fractional purchases, right? Like this is how many purchases would this get? A third. Just throwing that out there. So we need total purchase revenue. What else do we need? We need a kind of a count of each source medium. So we can't just like do the distinct ones, right? Because, well, could we? I don't know. Could we? Could we say we have one Google CPC, we have one direct none, we have two direct nuns? We need to make sure we sort of don't do anything where we deduplicate anything, because we're going to be dividing the total revenue 250 across the number of touch points and the number of sessions, including sessions that had a purchase. So let's just start writing some code, and I'm going to move this into another sheet just so I have some room here. I'm going to move that. We know we're doing linear. I need to make space, right? So great. So select all from user events. All right. And from here, I need to start counting the purchase revenue. And what do I need to do with that purchase revenue? I need to divide it evenly across all rows. So how would I do that? I'll just say everything from purchase events, and then I'll do like a sum of purchase value. Okay, now what is, it's not going to let me write this code right here as total revenue. Why is it not going to let me write that code? Because I'm not grouping by all the other columns, but I don't want to group by anything else. I just want the total purchase value, okay? So I need to basically say over the entire window. Okay, so that little bit of magic lets me actually get that total revenue figure across the entire window. Okay, cool. So now what do I need to do to get that 250 divided by 6? Well, I kind of, let's try it. Let me copy this down and say, could I do the sum purchase over the whole window divided by the count over the whole window? Maybe not. Maybe not. Could I do a count 1? That's not going to be happy with that. Let me call that as revenue divided by touches. What could I possibly do? Maybe count 1 over the whole window again? Interesting. So we see that pattern sort of repeating itself. And lo and behold, I do now have my revenue divided by touches. So this is kind of cool, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, great. So what do I have to do now? I could just say, hey, so this is my, what do I want to call this table? Revenue rows, maybe. I'll just making that up, revenue rows. And I'll move that in here. And then all we need to do, pause the video. Where are we at? We've built a little table that we like. What do we do now? What do? We just take the source medium and we do a sum of the revenue divided by touches, right? Maybe I'll just call that like the fractional revenue. I feel like that's a better name for it. And yeah, so let me say select source medium and sum of fractional revenue from revenue rows, and I'll say group by 1. Whoops, fractional revenue, me trying to spell things again. Never worked out well, never will. And yeah, what should I call that? Should I call that as linear revenue? That looks good. All right, so now we've got our linear revenue model. And just in case let me show all the code and just recall the algorithm, right? Every session, we're in simple world, every session gets the total purchase revenue, okay, and divided by the number of rows. That's simple world. Cool. So now we're back here. Why is my little drawing thing there? Okay. Now we're back here, and the key was that we come up with a window function where we sum the purchase revenue over the entire table, right? We do it over the entire table, and then we sum the purchase value, again, over the entire table. Then we also divide it by the total number of rows over the entire table. I think I could have used the count star too. I just did count 1. Yeah, that doesn't change anything. And then I just grabbed my source medium, summed up the fractional revenue, and I got my linear revenue by source medium. So think about that. If that felt good, what I would challenge you to do is modify the algorithm. And we'll do this in the next video. We're still in simple world. Okay? Not ideal world yet, but add another user. We need user B. I need user B. Make sure this code still works when you add another user. That's your challenge, okay? Make sure you can add another user and the code still works. Does it even matter? All right. I'll see you in the next video where we'll tackle that issue, and it might be a trick question, and we'll move on to ideal world, which is a little gnarlier. Great. See you soon. Keep it up.